Well, hey guys, how's it going? I just figured I'd make yet another video on my Window Manager Adventure series, and today I am coming to you guys back from the world's greatest Linux distribution, Gentoo, and the first thing I did was I installed a GUI environment, a terminal, and a web browser. Because realistically, that's all you need in life. But I just figured I'd continue working on these systems that I personally know and use. So that's why I went with Gentoo rather than sticking with Debian like you saw in the last video in this series, as well as Ubuntu Mate, which I quite famously broke, on release day, and I'm just going to go back to Gentoo because at least I know how to get everything working on Gentoo. But, we're going to explore all the window manager options that Gentoo offers in its traditional repositories first. But I've picked up a small list of window managers. One of you mentioned Monster WM, which I have looked into. Just a little bit, not really enough to justify making a video about it yet. And Monster WM actually looks pretty darn cool. And Black Box, if you saw the Fluxbox video, Black Box is what Fluxbox is based off of. And that's probably going to be the next one in the series, but I'm still figuring out how Black Box itself is supposed to work. But in the meantime, I figure, you know what? We're going to sit here, we're going to look at the most minimal of the option-wise of the floating window managers. And, well, I wouldn't even say that's the most minimal. One of the more minimal ones. And what we're looking at is yet another box, but this time, this is OpenBox. So yes, this is OpenBox. It does, unlike Fluxbox, it does not ship with a panel. And so I figure I'm not going to install panel at all. But there are a couple applications that if you're using a floating window manager, you're probably going to be making liberal use of the minimize and maximize button. And it's hard. Overall, it's much more difficult to keep track of your windows in a floating window manager compared to a tiling window manager, because in a tiling window manager, they're all in front of you all the time, whereas in a floating window manager, they might show up behind your other windows and stuff like that. So I figure I at least wanted a panel or something. But I figure, you know what, rather than a panel, let's just go with a dock, because I don't need a panel because, I already make very liberal use of Rofi. And this is what I've been using. You can see that I do have VS Code open. I unfortunately just, not gonna lie, guys, I don't want to use Vim because, I'm a Dvorak keyboard user. And, I just find myself tinkering too much in Emacs to actually do anything productive. So we're just using VS Code because it works out of the box best for what I want to do. Which is when I'm making when I'm dealing with these large text files, VS Code is going to do a little bit better than Vim in my eyes, or more or less from my workflow. Well, but even then, this isn't even proper VS Code. This is VS Codium. So, I'm not dealing with the Microsoft telemetry at all. But, it's still an Electron application. You can fight me later. But anyways, what I've got here is the primary configuration file opened up in OpenBox. It is an XML file. And, of course, it is an 800-line XML file. So, it's going to be a big one. But let's just talk real quick about how these XML configurations work. And generally, you want to think of an XML file in an array of tables, everything that is in a table. And if you've worked with HTML or anything like that, you know you're opening things and closing things. So let me see. Yes, I can zoom. Let me zoom in the text here just a little bit here. You can see we're setting our XML version and our encoding to UTF-8 encoding. And then we're importing an OpenBox configuration from this website here. That way we know what syntax we're using. And you can see we're pulling up resistance, screen edge strength, and stuff like that. What that is actually doing is that's if I was on a single monitor system, that's actually just tracking like how far I am from the edge of the screen. Because the default behavior of OpenBox is if you drag a window to the side of a screen, it's going to take it to the next desktop workspace. Which, let's talk about the features. If you've used a modern floating window manager, you would know that if you sit there and you grab a window with your mouse and you go to drag it around and you drag it to the side, it's going to it's going to set the window to do a horizontal split. You know, basically just like a full screen, but it's going to be shaped a bit more like this than and then you can grab another window, drag it to the side and be like that, and then when you drag it to the top, it'll full screen it. You would think that OpenBox would actually support doing that, but in truth, it actually does not. You would actually have to set a keybind to tell OpenBox to do that, which I haven't gotten around too far with, because you know I've only really been just getting started with this configuration. But you can see that we've got some focus rules, a window place. When we're talking about placement and policy here, what that is telling OpenBox, hey, when I open up a window, I want to open up a certain way. So let me open up a terminal. I don't have a launch keybind set up for terminals yet, but you can see. But the dock I'm using is blank. So if I want to open up like multiple terminals, I'm just going to hold the control key and then just click the window a couple more times. But what you'll see is now that I've got one terminal open, it's going to spawn the next terminal beside it. And if I click again, it's going to drop down a row and off to the right side. Click again, you're going to see that's going to restart. So there is a little bit of logic in like the window launching. And that's a smart policy. It's not going to it's going to do its best not to block an entire window when you open up another window. Or you can also just tell it to always open up the window underneath where your mouse cursor is. And then the next step here is going to be monitor mouse close monitor. What that and you can see that there's comments in here just kind of explaining it. And I'm going to tell it to always open up the window wherever my mouse is, because I'm using a floating window manager. I'm actively using my mouse to sit there and work and focus and unfocus windows. So rather than always opening up on like the primary monitor, I just want to open up to where my mouse is, because you know that's probably where I want the window to open anyway, because that's where I'm working. And you can see where it sets a theme, or where I am setting a theme, and then you can see that that's the theme name right there, KV Arc Dark. I'm moving to a Qt based system rather than a GTK system, because you know I just wanted to play around with Qt applications a bit more, because I've always been using GTK. So I'm using Kvantum to set my theme, and I need to set my OpenBox theme appropriately. That way, like my title bars match my theme and all for my applications. And then you got this title layout here. It's just a key. It's just a key coordination. You can see N is for like window icon, label, and stuff like that. And I'm telling it to draw borders because borders are, well, they are bloat, but not necessarily. They're like useful bloat. And then, you know, I got some animations that it's set, and then you can see where I'm setting fonts. And you can also specify the number of desktops too. Contrary to popular belief, OpenBox does not force you to create your desktops. It can actually dynamically generate and close them. So this is going to be best experimented shown with like a dynamic menu. But you can also see like I've got like these options to jump around too. But you can see if I open up a right-click menu, this is a menu I can open up and modify. I just typically put everything in the menu using a menu generating program, which I think I briefly covered in my Flexbox video. But you'll see that if I go over here to desktops, I have desktop 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can go to that desktop. I can also create or remove a desktop too. So if I just sit there and hit create, and then I go back to it, you can see now I have a desktop 5. And then, of course, I can remove it too. So I can create as many desktop spaces as I actually want. And I can just create and remove them. This is just telling OpenBox the default that I actually want to start with. I always want to start with 4 workspaces because I always find myself typically using about 4. And then I've got some resize options set here. And it just kind of just goes. OpenBox does support some docs. It doesn't support all the docs available, but you know, it supports Plank, it supports Cairo doc, which are like the 2 ones that you're probably going to be using here anyway. If you're going to be using a doc like what I use. I just use Plank because Plank is, you launch Plank and you're done. But you know, OpenBox tells Plank where like it wants it to be, and that's really it. And then, of course, we got the key bindings. And this is where like the majority of the key binds actually are. It's just all in here. Because, you know, it's a window manager. You're going to be setting key binds. And, of course, it's XML syntax, so it's going to be a little weird. I know. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. This project's from 2008, so what better solution did they have at the time? Because, you know, we didn't have YAML or TOML files that we could use, which are vastly superior. And, you know, nobody thought to make a bash script, make this bash scriptable, so I'm sorry. But, you know, just like, if I scroll down here to like where I'm launching commands, depending on what keys set, you can see that this is going to be like the plainest example here. You can see keybind, key, and I'm defining the key, right? And then I'm telling it I want it to do an action, and I want it to execute a command. And in the execute, I'm going to give it the command to execute. And then, you know, I close the execute, I close the action, and I close the keybind. And then that's all you're really doing in an XML file. It looks more cryptic than it actually is. And, you know, it does get a little confusing from, like, if you're just scrolling real fast and you're just skimming for stuff. But when you're actually writing in XML, it does make a little bit of sense. Or at least, versions of XML like this. Because you can look through some massive XML files and not understand a damn thing. Just saying. But yeah, just scrolling down here, you can see where now we're setting up the mouse behavior. I typically, if it supports the mouse behavior I don't hate out of the box, I'm typically never going to touch this stuff. And you can see that it spends a lot on the mouse behavior. And then down here, it's talking about like monitor position rules and all that. I haven't messed with any of that yet. But you know what? It's fine. I'm not probably going to mess with that too much at all. But that's just the general configuration file. Now let's look at how I do this menu. There are a couple things you can do with the menu. You can create the file yourself manually if you really want. And you can see that, of course, it's another XML file, and as well, it's XML spaghetti. But, of course, just like I explained with the keybinds, you're opening a table, opening a root menu, which, you know, when we're talking about root menu, I'm talking about the leading menu that up at the top. And you can see that we're creating a subcategory of development, and we're dropping some applications in there. And then you see I've got another submenu for editors, and it just spirals from there for the most part. But what I do is, rather than, you know, rather than typing everything in by hand, what I'll do is I'll just use menu maker, mmaker. And it's mmaker OpenBox -T for terminal. I use a Sakura terminal. I'm not using a Debian system, and I don't want any legacy applications in here. So like your classic Xorg tools and stuff like that. I just don't want it in the menu. That's really it. And then, you know, I just sit there and run that, and that will automatically, well, it will auto-magically create the menu in .config/openbox in my home directory. And then that's how you set that. And then here, OpenBox will set the environment variables for you, so I can go in here and I can specify environment variables. And then, of course, it's got an auto start file too, and you can see that I'm automatic. And you can see that whenever I restart OpenBox and log into it, it's going to sit there and update my menu, because, you know, I might not be in OpenBox all the time, but, you know, I want OpenBox to have like a menu that is going to have basically everything I want. And then you can see that I'm setting the wallpaper with Faye, and I'm launching PyCom, my compositor. And then you can see that I've got Plank, which is, of course, the doc. And I'm running a fetch time script, which all my fetch time script really does is it tells me the time of day. And, you know, I can set that with a keybind. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But, you know, when I log in, when I open up OpenBox, I just want it to, hey, there's the time, you know? It's there for maybe 30 seconds. It's not really there for very long. And I'm using the dunce notification daemon, which I know it looks kind of ugly out of the box, but at the same time, I don't outright hate it. So I think it's fine. It's fine. But let's talk about like the most unique features of OpenBox. And well, the biggest thing that OpenBox has compared to like other window managers is that you can actually get Gui Tools to modify it. So let me just open up Rofi here, and there's two primary applications you're going to be using. One of them is OBConf, and it'll show up in like your menu listings as like an OpenBox settings, and you can see where I can set the theme with this, and I can modify like my window title bars. I can set my fonts. I can set some window rules in here. I can set some more definitions in here. I can set how the mouse works. I can configure the default number of desktops. I can set my margins, which, you know, if I increase these margins whenever I maximize a window, it might not actually maximize the window. It'll just give me a little bit of a gap there on either side, which, you know, if you're using a panel or anything like that, you might want to set like a margin for OpenBox. That way, you know, it's not launching windows behind your panel. And you can also see where it's like got the dock settings. And what this does is every time you update a variable in this, it's going to update the variable in your XML file as well, which might be useful for some people kind of just learning how the configuration file works. And you know, it's a very useful tool to have if you're just getting started with OpenBox itself. And it's pretty useful. Another one that you're going to see is that there's another GUI tool called I think it's called OB menu for OpenBox menu. And it's a GUI tool to create and modify your OpenBox menu. But of course, I'm using Menu Maker to create the menu for me, so I'm not going to have that application. And as a result, I don't even have it installed right now. But, you know, I think it is in the Gen2 repositories, so let's just do, yeah, right there. Actually, you know what? No, that's a generator, so that's not the OpenBox menu. But that is a tool that does exist. I know for a fact that's in the Arch Linux repositories as well as Debian's. And then if you want to use OpenBox to log in and log out of your system, there is an OB logout script too that launches up a GUI tool to reboot, suspend, and so on your system. But there's really OpenBox is really kind of just a no thrills window manager. Like there's nothing super fancy here. What you see is literally what you get after all that. So if you're just getting started into standalone window managers, or say you use a desktop environment like LXQT or LXDE, OpenBox probably is not a bad place to start. And I just wish that like it got a little bit more love, but at the same time, I don't think that it's really a problem. You can just like Flexbox, it does have you can go to boxlook.org and you can find themes for OpenBox, but of course, like I said, I'm using Covantum, which you can see has all kinds of pre-existing themes for it, which, you know, I think is fine. But anyways, guys, I think next up might be Blackbox, and then we're probably going to take a peek at Window Maker, and then after those two, I'm going to start digging through the comments and really look to see what you guys want me to look at next. If you want to find like these videos quicker in the future, I do post them on a PeerTube instance as well as an Odysee or a library instance. That both of those are going to be linked in the description down below. The wonderful thing about those services is that I publish the video as soon as it gets uploaded. Which means, unlike you guys watching these videos on YouTube, you're going to get the videos right away. Whereas everybody on YouTube, you have to wait until 2 p.m. on Thursdays. And who the hell wants to do that? I mean, seriously. But, you know, it's either do that or lock them behind a Patreon-like paywall. And I don't want to do that. So I made the long-term commitment that anything I create will never be put behind a paywall. Whether that be like my D&D maps or like any tools that I would create for that, which, you know, I don't even cover on this channel anymore, or, you know, like my configurations, my suckless tool builds, my videos, podcasts, and so on. I'm not going to lock them behind anything. Never. But, you know, there are some other links I have in the description. So if you want to support me, I have a Librepay account that you can donate to. I don't accept any cryptocurrencies, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But, you know, the one thing that you guys can do for me is I work a very boring job where I basically sit down and I wait for something to happen. So I have an Amazon wishlist in the description. Buy me something off of there, preferably a book. And, you know, I kind of need the bookshelf too, if you guys want to buy me the bookshelf. But I can get that pick that up on my own. But, you know, buy me one of the books on the Amazon wishlist, and That'll give me something to at least read for a couple months. But anyways, guys, I'll see ya. You know, at least on Gentoo, I can get Pipewire to actually, you know, work, unlike Ubuntu Mate, which, you know, likes to crash the system.